Law of minimum Liebig's law. According to this law, the growth is regulated by the limited factors, i.e. resources in scarcity, and not by the resources in abundance. This law was originated after studying and observing the crop and plant growth. What is the difference between the law of minimum and the law of limiting factors? Limiting factor, single environmental factor that limits the growth, abundance, or distribution of the population of a species in an ecosystem. Law of the minimum, the growth, abundance, or distribution of the population of a species in an ecosystem are determined by the limited environmental factor. Welcome to SUYA e-learning for food security, climate change, school feeding program, nutrition education for all. When you have bad governance and poor accountability from your local government leaders, then you are doomed to live under control of cartels and fools. We hope you subscribe to our channel YouTube at SUYA Mombasa and share this links with your friends or family. How does the moon phase affect plants? Can moonlight affect plant growth? Permaculture principles. While it may not be as widely recognized yet, it is becoming more clear that the moon also affects the flow of water through plants. Sap moves more vigorously during the waxing phase as the moon grows to full, and slows down as the moon wanes to a thin morning crescent. It depends on what you are planting. Some crops do better when planted before a full moon, waxing phase, while other crops do better when planted after a full moon, waning phase. What does the moon have to do with planting? For example, moon-based planting calendars suggest sowing seeds for crops that yield an above-ground harvest when the moon is increasing, going from new moon to full moon. Root crops, on the other hand, are best planted during the waning moon, going from full moon to new moon. What are the moon signs for planting? When possible, plant seed while the moon is in the fruitful signs of Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces. The next best signs are Taurus and Capricorn. Fruits and vegetables gathered just before full moon in the second quarter will usually stand shipment much better than others. Think about this, a tree could be 100, 200, more than 300 feet tall, yet can lift water from deep underground all the way to the leaves of its highest branches. Each day it could move hundreds of gallons, several tons of water this way. This gravity-defying feat is made possible not so much by the tree, but by the properties of water itself. Trees perform photosynthesis in their leaves, which requires water. The hydrogen in water goes to form carbohydrates, sugar, the food for the tree. The oxygen is exhaled through pores in the leaves. Water also evaporates, or transpires, through these pores. It's this transpiration from the leaves that pulls water up the trunk and branches to them. The majority of water loss from the leaf occurs via the stomata, pores on one or both sides of the leaf surface, the apertures of which are tightly regulated. When the stomatal pores are open, water evaporates from the cell walls of mesophyll into the intercellular spaces below the stomatal complex. What prevents water loss from the leaves? Plants have evolved over time to adapt to their local environment and reduce transpiration. Leaves are covered by a waxy cuticle on the outer surface that prevents the loss of water. Soil microbiomes. The terrestrial landscape on Earth harbors countless microbes that have major responsibilities in shaping their surrounding environment. 1 gram of soil can contain up to 10 billion microorganisms and consist of thousands of different species. Each ecosystem has unique soil properties that cultivate a diverse array of microbial communities, which are primarily composed of bacteria. However, archaea, protists, fungi, viruses, and other microscopic organisms can be found in varying abundances too. The composition and health of the surrounding environment and its macro-inhabitants are dependent on their soil-borne microbial partners, and a disturbance in the balance of the soil microbiome can have far-reaching effects. Omoteo and Barbalola, 2021. They form a close symbiotic relationship with plant roots. They are called mycorrhizae from the Greek mux, meaning fungus, and rhiza, meaning roots. Mycorrhizae form a network of filaments that associate with plant roots and draw nutrients from the soil that the root system would not be able to access otherwise. What is the significance of mycorrhizal interaction? Mechanisms underlying beneficial plant-fungus interactions in. Both partners benefit from the relationship. Mycorrhizal fungi improve the nutrient status of their host plants, influencing mineral nutrition, water absorption, growth, and disease resistance, whereas in exchange, the host plant is necessary for fungal growth and reproduction too. How do you adjust the pH level in soil? What can be done to correct poor soil pH? Overly acidic soil is neutralized with the addition of limestone, available at garden centers. Powdered or pelleted agricultural limestone is most commonly used. Don't overdo lime, it is much easier to raise pH than to lower it. What happens if soil pH is too high? Iron deficiency, thionchlorosis, is a very common problem throughout Utah and is the direct result of high pH soils reducing the availability of iron to plants. The most common symptom of iron deficiency is interveinal chlorosis, where leaves turn light green or yellow but leaf veins remain green. What is the fastest way to lower pH in soil? Soil pH can be reduced most effectively by adding elemental sulfur, aluminum sulfate, or sulfuric acid. The choice of which material to use depends on how fast you hope the pH will change and the type and size of plant experiencing the deficiency.
इंच का एक बेड और 16 इंच के 2 बेड प्रॉपर एक प्रेस के साथ और निशान लगाने के साथ ये निशान ज़रूरी आरात जो है ये पेश करते हैं हमारे लिए ये प्लांटर। लोधरा में इनकी शॉप है, आगे आपको एड्रेस भी पीछे भी लिखा हुआ है, आगे दोबारा आ गया। ये आप प्लांटर देख रहे हैं, इसमें हम 2 इकट्ठे करके 42 इंच का भी बना सकते हैं। ये आप देख रहे हैं नीचे 42 इंच का और ऊपर 16 इंच के दरमियान में एक छोटा 10 इंच का पानी का चैनल आने का। ये आप 16 इंच के 2 देख रहे हैं और दरमियान वाला ये 10 इंच का पानी का चैनल। ये आप देख रहे हैं 3 लाइन लगा रहा है। ये हाई डेंसिटी पे प्रॉपर डिस्टेंस प्लांट टू प्लांट, रो टू रो प्रॉपर डिस्टेंस रखेगा और ये आप निशान लगा देखते जा रहे हैं। अब ये बेसिकली मेन इसका इस्तेमाल लहसुन और जो है प्याज इन दोनों के लिए, दोनों फसलों के लिए निशान लगाने का सबसे बड़ा मकसद ये है कि लेबर का एक तो जो एक्सपर्ट लेबर होती है वो तो एक अंदाज़ा रखती है, लेकिन उनका भी कंप्यूटराइज तो अंदाज़ा नहीं ना आता। अब ये फिक्स प्लांट टू प्लांट डिस्टेंस जो तकरीबन 4 इंच या 6 इंच जितना भी आप रखवाना चाहते हैं वो रखा जा रहा है। तो एक तो जिस जगह पे किसी ने कोई सीड या जो है आपकी सीडलिंग प्याज की वो ना लगी होगी तो हमें पता चल जाएगा कि इस जगह पे मज़दूर ने ये काम नहीं किया, ये खाली छोड़ दिया। वैसे निशान के बगैर हो तो हमें पता नहीं चलता। और ये देख रहे हैं आप कितना बराबर प्रेस हो रहा है। इस पर आप मल्चिंग करना चाहें तो आसानी से मल्चिंग हो जाती है। जो हमारे वैसे हम मक्की वाले प्लांटर यूज़ करते हैं उससे ऊपर वाली खेल बराबर नहीं होती। उससे क्या होता है कि जो ऊपर हम हाई डेंसिटी पे अगर जाते हैं, ये अगर 2 तो साइड पे लगाए तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर हाई डेंसिटी पे जाते हैं तो वो हमारा सही प्रॉपर ड्रेनेज, प्रॉपर पानी की जो सीपेज है वो सिस्टम सही नहीं हो पाता। अभी ये आप दोबारा देख रहे हैं 16 इंच, अब ये 42 इंच का हमने स्टार्ट कर दिया। अभी ये 42 इंच का बन रहा है और 42 इंच पे प्याज का तजर्बा बहुत उम्दा रहा है लोगों का, मल्चिंग करके। और दरमियान वाला सीड, इसमें आपका सवाल हो जाएगा दरमियान वाले को पानी की नमी पहुंचेगी कि नहीं पहुंचेगी। इसके लिए बेसिकली आपकी ज़मीन किस तरह की है, वो बदतर रखती है नहीं रखती है, उसकी नमी सीपेज कहाँ तक जाती है, इस चीज़ का आपने अंदाज़ा रखना है। अगर आपकी ज़मीन ज़्यादा नमी आगे नहीं खींचती तो फिर ये 42 इंच वाला आपके लिए बेकार है, फिर आप 16 इंच वाला इस्तेमाल कीजिए, क्योंकि दरमियान में तो आपकी नमी आएगी नहीं। वैसे अमूमन मैक्सिमम ज़मीनों पे नमी आ जाती है और दरमियान वाला ज़्यादा बेहतर ग्रोथ करता है मल्चिंग के साथ। लेकिन कुछ हर इलाके में डिफरेंट ज़मीनें होती हैं। जैसे हमारे इलाके में हमारे पास ढाई की ज़मीन है, तो उसमें कुछ ज़मीनें के साथ बिल्कुल भी नमी नहीं आती, साथ किनारे भी होती है, तो उस जगह पे ये कामयाब ज़्यादा नहीं है। तो ये अगर नमी वाली ज़मीन अच्छी ज़मीन है तो हाँ आपको एक बहुत ही ज़्यादा ज़मीन का इफेक्टिव यूज़ है। अब इस पे आप देख रहे हैं 6 से 7 या 8 लाइनें लग रही हैं, तो जो चाहे इसका बड़ा इफेक्टिव इस्तेमाल।
On the other hand, Mitscherlich's law of diminishing return states a decreasing marginal productivity as levels of the limiting factor are raised. According to this law, plants cannot grow indefinitely and there is a maximum of production. According to this law, plants cannot grow indefinitely and there is a maximum of production. This law assumes that returns from fertilization are proportional to the difference between maximum and current productions, in such a way that the returns tend to zero as production approaches its maximum value. How do you neutralize salt in plants? You will need to use a lot of water to flush out all the excess minerals, as the water will absorb the salt and remove it. Once you are done with this process, your plant should be good to go. Don't fertilize your plant for a while to let everything reset to normal. How to fix high sodium level? When soils are high in sodium, the goal is to replace the sodium with calcium and then leach the sodium out. There are two possible approaches for doing this: dissolve the limestone, calcium carbonate, or gypsum, calcium sulfate, already present in the soil, or add calcium to the soil. Addition of calcium. Calcium has a more powerful electrical charge than sodium, so the application of gypsum will displace soil sodium. Irrigation then leaches the free sodium through the soil profile, thus restoring the physical properties of the soil. What happens if plants absorb too much salt? Stunted growth and yellowed leaves are the first signs that salt a plant can tolerate. In broadleafed species, the second stage involves leaves dying, followed by leaves dropping off. In conifers, the second stage involves needles turning brown, followed by needles dropping off. They are boron B chloride, Cl, copper Cu, iron Fe, manganese Mn, molybdenum Mo, nickel Ni, and zinc Zn. Micronutrients are important for plant growth, as plants require a proper balance of all the essential nutrients for normal growth and optimum yield. Here are the most common symptoms of nutrient deficiencies in plants. Yellow leaves. Yellow or brown leaf edges. Holes in leaves. Leaves look burnt or scorched. Leaves have a purple or red tone. Yellowing between leaf veins. Small or stunted leaves. Yellow or brown spots on leaves. Soil pH will influence both the availability of soil nutrients to plants and how the nutrients react with each other. For example, at a low pH, many elements become less available to plants, while others such as iron, aluminum and manganese become toxic to plants. What are the effects of high pH on plant growth? Because soil pH affects nutrient availability to roots, the primary symptoms of adverse soil pH are similar to those that can occur from nutrient deficiencies or excesses, toxicities. High pH causes interveinal chlorosis and bleaching, pale mottling, and blotchy or marginal necrosis of new growth. What is the 5 importance of pH in soil? The pH is important because it influences the availability of essential nutrients. Most horticultural crops will grow satisfactorily in soils having a pH between 6, slightly acid, and 7.5, slightly alkaline. Since most garden soils in Iowa are in this range, most gardeners experience few problems with soil pH. Justus von Liebig. He discovered that essentially, the chain of nutrients in the soil is only as strong as its weakest link. His findings have encouraged farmers to expand their view beyond just the major macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, NPK. He recognized the need for a more expansive nutrient profile. Liebig illustrated the concept of limitation using a metaphorical barrel with each stave representing a different element. A nutrient stave that was shorter than the others would cause the liquid contained in the barrel to spill out at that level. What is the Liebig's barrel principle? Liebig's law of the minimum economics. Liebig's law states that the crop yield achievable is dictated by the nutrient that is most limiting. The traditional illustration of Liebig's law of the minimum uses a barrel with unequal staves to demonstrate how nutrient supply can limit plant growth. How do you neutralize salt in plants? You will need to use a lot of water to flush out all the excess minerals, as the water will absorb the salt and remove it. Once you are done with this process, your plant should be good to go. Don't fertilize your plant for a while to let everything reset to normal. How to fix high sodium level? When soils are high in sodium, the goal is to replace the sodium with calcium and then leach the sodium out. There are two possible approaches for doing this: dissolve the limestone, calcium carbonate, or gypsum, calcium sulfate, already present in the soil, or add calcium to the soil. Addition of calcium. Calcium has a more powerful electrical charge than sodium, so the application of gypsum will displace soil sodium. Irrigation then leaches the free sodium through the soil profile, thus restoring the physical properties of the soil. What happens if plants absorb too much salt? Stunted growth and yellowed leaves are the first signs that a plant can tolerate. In broadleaf species, the second stage involves leaves dying, followed by leaves dropping off. In conifers, the second stage involves needles turning brown, followed by needles dropping off. In the 19th century, the German scientist Justus von Liebig formulated the law of the minimum, which states that if one of the essential plant nutrients is deficient, plant growth will be poor even when all other essential nutrients are abundant. What is the barrel concept? Liebig's barrel. Daubenecq used the image of a barrel, often called Liebig's barrel, to explain Liebig's law. Just as the maximum practical capacity of a barrel with staves of unequal length is limited by the length of the shortest stave. Similarly, a plant's growth is limited by the nutrient in shortest supply. What are the benefits of nano-fertilizer? Stronger plants due to nano-fertilizers. Nano-fertilizers are very small nutrients that are easily absorbed into plant capillaries. This makes the absorption of nutrients such as iron, calcium, copper, and silver very effective. Even at higher or lower pH values, nano-fertilizers are absorbed effectively by plants. Which is better, urea or nano-urea? Comparing nano-urea to conventional urea reveals higher efficiency, reduced environmental impact, controlled nutrient supply, and economic benefits. Plant growth promoting bacteria, PGPB, are bacteria that can enhance plant growth and protect plants from disease and abiotic stresses through a wide variety of mechanisms. Those that establish close associations with plants, such as the endophytes, could be more successful in plant growth promotion. Bacterial inoculants can contribute to increase agronomic efficiency by reducing production costs and environmental pollution, once the use of chemical fertilizers can be reduced or eliminated if the inoculants are efficient. The success and efficiency of PGPB as inoculants for agricultural crops are influenced by various factors, among which the ability of these bacteria to colonize plant roots, the exudation by plant roots, and the soil health. What are plant growth promoting rhizobacteria as biofertilizers? Biofertilizers are microbial formulations constituted of indigenous plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, PGPR, that directly or indirectly promote plant growth through the solubilization of soil nutrients and the production of plant growth stimulating hormones and iron sequestering metabolites called siderophores. Plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, PGPR, are a group of bacteria that enhances plant growth and yield via various plant growth promoting substances as well as biofertilizers. Given the negative environmental impact of artificial fertilizers and their increasing costs, the use of beneficial soil microorganisms such as PGPR for sustainable and safe agriculture has increased globally during the last couple of decades. PGPR as biofertilizers are well recognized as efficient soil microbes for sustainable agriculture and hold great promise in the improvement of agriculture yields. Free-living PGPR have shown promise as biofertilizers. Many studies and reviews have reported plant growth promotion, increased yield, solubilization of P, phosphorus, or K, potassium, uptake of N, nitrogen, and some other elements through inoculation with PGPR. In addition, studies have shown that inoculation with PGPR enhances root growth, leading to a root system with large surface area and increased number of root hairs. Worldwide, considerable progress has been achieved in the area of PGPR biofertilizer technology. It has been also demonstrated and proved that PGPR can be very effective and are potential microbes for enriching the soil fertility and enhancing the agriculture yield. What is the function of root hairs? Root hairs function as an extension of plant epidermal cells in growing plant roots. They serve to increase the surface area of plant roots and help the plant extract more water from the soil as well as more efficiently extract nutrients from the soil. Final input and output pH value between 6.0 and 7.0. Anaerobic digesters can operate at pH levels from 6.0 to 8.0, with the desired range being 6.8 to 7.2. If the pH falls to levels below 6.0 or above 8.0, the methane-forming bacteria will die off and the digestion process will cease operation. The methane-forming bacteria are the key component for anaerobic digestion. Fermentation, yeast can utilize cyanogenic glucoside and their metabolites, thereby reducing toxicity, poisonous compounds. Studies have shown that a combination of yeast and lactic acid bacteria is most effective than using any of the organisms alone in fermentation. Traditional fermentation takes up to 6 days. What does EM contain? EM contains selected species of microorganisms including predominant populations of lactic acid bacteria and yeasts and smaller numbers of photosynthetic bacteria, actinomycetes and other types of organisms. All of these are mutually compatible with one another and can coexist in liquid culture. There will come a time when only those that know how to plant will be eating. Chief Oran Lions. If you like African food systems content, please subscribe and share our channel with your friends and family, or if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you make sure to never miss our weekly presentation podcast. Agriculture is tool to create health, wealth, shelter, protect environment, food, nutrition and basic skills development for our local communities. Add this rice water to milk. Ideal ratio between milk and rice water is 10:1 ratio. Lab culture should have a sweet odor. If the odor becomes unpleasant, rotten, after it has been stored, discard it and make a new batch. Since milk has more nutrients than the rice, washed water, lactic acid bacteria will grow vigorously. Whey has low pH value ranging from 3.6 to 4.5 with an average value of 4.1. Approximately 3 to 5 days after adding 10 parts milk to 1 part fermented rice rinse, water, the contents of the jar will separate into a floating solid mass and a yellow liquid. The yellow liquid is the lab culture, which must be kept alive. Molasses or brown sugar for these microbes to feed on floating matter, clear liquid and debris, waste. Starch, protein, and fat will float on the surface and yellow liquid will be deposited at the middle, called as lactic acid bacteria. Put rice, washed water 15 to 20 centimeters deep in a jar. Rice water washing will be used as the carbohydrate source for collecting lactic acid bacteria from the air. Lactic acid bacteria will propagate at 23 to 25 C, and the solution will start to smell sour. Add this rice water to milk. Cassava fermentation, yeast can utilize cyanogenic glucoside and their metabolites, thereby reducing toxicity, poisonous compounds. Studies have shown that a combination of yeast and lactic acid bacteria is most effective than using any of the organisms alone in fermentation. Traditional fermentation takes up to 6 days. Rice wash lactic acid bacteria recipe. 2 liters rice wash. Add 20 liters milk, unprocessed if possible. After rice wash and milk, remove curds, around 2 liters. Left with 20 liters pure lab, lactic acid bacteria.
Boost beneficial bacteria in the soil, which is great for plant growth. Once the potatoes are boiled, let them cool down before moving on to the next step. Next, we are going to take a handful of sea salt. Why sea salt? It's packed with trace minerals like magnesium, calcium, and potassium, which are all essential for healthy plant growth. It gives the fertilizer an extra nutrient boost. But remember, only a small amount of salt is needed, just a handful. So don't overdo it. Now comes the compost. Compost is already rich in nutrients and full of microorganisms that improve soil health. We're going to take an equal amount of compost as the potatoes and add it to our mixture. Compost will help balance out the fertilizer, making it nutrient-dense and full of life. Now you can make a little sack or bundle by tying the cheesecloth securely. To make sure the pouch sinks in water and releases the nutrients properly, add a stone or some weight inside the bundle. This will help keep it submerged while it ferments, ensuring that all the good stuff gets into the liquid. After the pouch is ready, take about 3 liters of water. It's important that the water is non-chlorinated because chlorine can kill off beneficial microbes that we want to thrive in our fertilizer. Drop the pouch into the water. You'll need to use a container with a loose-fitting lid because during the fermentation process...
What does rice wash contain? It contains enough NPK or nitrogen, N, phosphorus, P, and potassium, K, fertilizers, which are the essential nutrients needed by all plants. The strained water after boiling rice is also beneficial to plants, and it contains more nutrients than the rice water derived from only washing. In plants, algae, and cyanobacteria, photosynthesis releases oxygen. This is called oxygenic photosynthesis. Although there are some differences between oxygenic photosynthesis in plants, algae, and cyanobacteria, the overall process is quite similar in these organisms. What are examples of oxygenic photosynthesis? Oxygenic photosynthesis occurs in a variety of organisms, including eukaryotic microorganisms such as algae and bacteria such as cyanobacteria. The same mechanism is at work in both. Chlorophylls are a type of pigment that is made up of protoporphyrin complexed with magnesium. What are lactic acid fermentation bacteria? Lactic acid bacteria such as Lactobacillus spp, Lactococcal, Streptococcus thermophilus, and locomotors are examples of lactic acid bacteria that have the ability to convert sugars into lactic acid. Lactic acid inhibits the growth of subsequent and potentially harmful bacteria of other species. What are the benefits of lactic acid fermentation? Lactic acid is an organic acid found naturally in fermented foods and added to some processed foods to prevent spoilage and increase flavor. Lactic acid and the bacteria that produce it are associated with several health benefits, including improved gut health and increased nutrient absorption. With many governments failing to perform their duty towards their citizens in preserving and ensuring their basic right to water, drying out African lands details how communities and NGOs are left to advocate against the projects and often faced with violent repression. Misguided by the World Bank, African governments give away land and water across the continent. Governments, with support and guidance from international institutions such as the World Bank and Western aid agencies, are promoting large-scale agriculture schemes. Can jaggery be used as manure? The jaggery-based fertilizer. Prepare the solution by mixing 200 liters of water, 2 kilograms of jaggery, and 1 bottle of WDC solution in a 250 liters drum. Then, I mix it well with a wooden stick and cover it with a cloth to allow air circulation. It ferments within a few days and emits a fruity odor. Benefits: jaggery acts as an activator, feeding the microorganisms that break down organic matter into rich compost. The result is nutrient-dense compost that will boost plant growth. Fusarium wilt, widespread plant disease caused by many forms of the soil, inhabiting fungus Fusarium oxysporum. Several hundred plant species are susceptible, including important food crops such as sweet potatoes, tomatoes, legumes, melons, and bananas. Infection is known as Panama disease. Fusarium wilt does not spread above the ground from plant to plant. Each plant is individually infected when the organism enters the root system. Symptoms include yellowing, stunting, and death of seedlings, and yellowing and stunting of older plants. Infected plants wilt readily, lower leaves yellow and dry, the xylem tissues turn brown, and the plant may die. In the early stages of disease, the roots are not rotted. Root hair absorbs water from soil through osmosis. Water will be absorbed by root hairs by osmosis as the environment in the soil is hypotonic. This kind of absorption takes place passively. The water can easily move from the region of higher concentration to the low concentration without expenditure of energy. How do root hairs help a plant absorb water and nutrients from the soil? Water and nutrients enter the root through long thread-like cells called root hairs. Root hairs are small enough to grow in the spaces between soil particles. They greatly increase the surface area of the root to provide a larger surface to absorb water and nutrients. Can salt water be used as fertilizer? Ocean water is therefore rich in minerals and nutrients that otherwise may not exist in the soil. In fact, ocean water contains all trace minerals. Ocean water, both oxygenated and alkaline in pH, can be added to acidic soils to improve conditions for growing plants. Salt is critical for the movement of water through the soil to the root system. It draws water to the root system. Only when it is too high will it steal the water from the roots, causing dehydration, which is called root burning. The principal component of sea salt is sodium chloride, while the remaining portion consists of other trace minerals. These trace minerals mostly include potassium, calcium, and magnesium, which are found in natural seawater. The commercial sea salts in the market may vary in their chemical composition as the harvesting place and method change. However, the ion composition of natural salt water is relatively stable. Sea salt is an excellent option for many usage areas like bath salts or body scrubs, but whether you use sea salt or table salt in your diet does not make any difference in terms of health, when the recommended daily intake is considered the same. However, sea salt is still an excellent seasoning product for those who prefer it. What does silicone do to plants? Silicone strengthens the cell walls and allows plants to create a tough outer coating with extra leaf hairs. This makes it much harder for feeding pests to penetrate and also restricts the growth of fungal hyphae. Following cell absorption, deposited silicon becomes immobile. Plant-water relations regulated by silicon under drought stress conditions include activation of antioxidant systems, 2. Stimulation of gene expression and defense responses, 3. Adjustment of osmotic processes and maintenance of homeostasis, 4. Increases in nutrient uptake and maintenance of mineral balance, 5. Regulation of photosynthesis and gas exchange, and 6. Improvements in plant growth and water uptake. Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, AMF, are essential components of the plant root microbiome and are found in approximately 80% of land plants. As obligate plant symbionts, AMF harbor their own microbiota both inside and outside the plant root system. AMF-associated bacteria, AB, possess various functional traits, including nitrogen fixation, organic and inorganic phosphate mobilization, growth hormone production, biofilm production, enzymatic capabilities, and biocontrol against pathogen attacks, which not only contribute to the health of the arbuscular mycorrhizal symbiosis, but also promote plant growth. Lactic acid bacteria agricultural application. A. Anti-bacterial and anti-fungal activity. B. Biopesticides and insecticides. C. Biofertilizer increases soil fertility, aeration and retention of moisture content, elevates the mineral uptake and organic decomposition, acetifies the soil and reduces pest diseases. D. IAA. Indole acetic acid cytokinin and siderophore secretion increases the root and shoot length and solubilizes the phosphate in the soil. E. Heavy metal removal, detoxification of fungal mycotoxins, acidification by lactic acid and organic acid, increases organic decomposition and increases the organic content in the soil, biodegradation. F. CRISPR, Cas systems and derived molecular machines, endogenous or exogenous engineering to enhanced functional attributes. Seaweeds or macroalgae belong to the lower plants, meaning that they do not have roots, stems, and leaves. Instead, they are composed of a thallus, leaf-like, and sometimes a stem and a foot. Some species have gas-filled structures to provide buoyancy. They are subdivided in 3 groups, the red, green, and brown macroalgae. Because seaweed is rich in micro and macronutrients, humic acids, and phytohormones, it enhances soil fertility. In addition, seaweed-derived fertilizers contain polysaccharides, proteins, and fatty acids, which improve the moisture and nutrient retention of soil, contributing to improved crop growth. Advantages of liquid seaweed fertilizer. Here's why pro gardener love liquid seaweed fertilizer. Boosts plant growth, thanks to cytokinins, gibberellins, and auxins. Expect to see some happy, flourishing plants. Enhances soil health. It's not just good for plants, it improves soil structure too, making it a win-win. Rich in micronutrients, plants love these tiny yet mighty nutrients, and liquid seaweed's got plenty of them. Promotes root growth. Strong roots mean strong plants, and this fertilizer is a champion in stimulating root development. Disadvantages of liquid seaweed fertilizer. While liquid seaweed fertilizer is fantastic, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Cost. Quality comes with a price. It's more expensive than your average fertilizer. Shelf life. It's not the kind of thing you buy in bulk and forget about. Use it up while it's fresh and effective. NPK ratio. It's low in NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, so you might need to supplement it with other fertilizers for balanced nutrition.
My name is Hanan Mohammed. I'm the founder and CEO of Sea Earth Organics. I do farming here, purely organic farming, and we do production of organic fertilizers and pesticide as well. The farm is purely organic. It's really costly to get organic products, so now we had to produce our own fertilizer. So we opted to do the seaweed fertilizer and vermicompost fertilizer. We actually started by doing a lot of research. After the research, we did some testing. We prototyped it at our farm. Seaweed has a lot of components. So what we use particularly is what comes offshore, what is washed from the sea. Actually, people think it's waste and kind of nuisance to some people when you go to the beach, but it has a lot of value. We empower youth and women as well. When they're doing their beach cleanup, we give them incentive to collect for us the seaweed. And then when they bring, we usually, there's various ways to do the fertilizer. So we ferment it for a number of days, and then we mix it with the plant base and the animal base. And then now the mixture, now it becomes a result of a fertilizer and a pesticide. We actually targeting small-scale farmers, those farmers who cannot afford the fertilizer that is being sold at the market.
Ni mbolea ambayo haina kemikali. Ni mbolea ambayo unatumia inakuza mumea, na hata hivyo kuna wadudu vile vile katika mumea inaua.
My target is to export my product. Currently we are doing local, but I see myself doing an export, so I'll be very happy to see Sea Earth Organic out there. It will mean a lot.
Seaweed extract. Concentrate, 28% WW, is an organic biostimulant manufactured through globally patented process technology from red and brown marine algae. The product has naturally occurring plant growth regulators such as auxins, cytokinins, and gibberellins, essential amino acids, macro and micronutrients. Algae are photosynthetic organisms that grow in a range of aquatic habitats, including lakes, ponds, rivers, oceans, and even wastewater. They can tolerate a wide range of temperatures, salinities, and pH values, different light intensities, and conditions in reservoirs or deserts, and can grow alone or in symbiosis with other organisms. 1. Algae are broadly classified as Rhodophyta, red algae, Phaeophyta, brown algae, and Chlorophyta, green algae, and classified by size as macroalgae or microalgae. Macroalgae, seaweed, are multicellular, large-size algae, visible with the naked eye, while microalgae are microscopic single cells and may be prokaryotic, similar to cyanobacteria, Chloroxybacteria, or eukaryotic, similar to green algae, Chlorophyta. Plant polysaccharides play a crucial role in plant growth and development by serving as structural components, energy storage, and signaling molecules, contributing to the overall health and vitality of plants. Seaweed is rich in micro and macronutrients, humic acids, and phytohormones. It enhances soil fertility. In addition, seaweed-derived fertilizers contain polysaccharides, proteins, and fatty acids, which improve the moisture and nutrient retention of soil, contributing to improved crop growth. Protein content in seaweed varies by species, season, and geographic location, and can be as high as 45% DW. The contents of peptides, proteins, or amino acids in seaweed are affected by seasonal fluctuations and habitat, In general, red algae have larger concentrations, up to 47%, than green algae, around 9 and 26%. While brown algae have low amounts, 3 to 15%. The beneficial effects of seaweed are mostly due to the presence of minerals, vitamins, phenols, polysaccharides, and sterols, as well as several other bioactive compounds. These compounds seem to have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, antimicrobial, and anti-diabetic activities. Marine macroalgae, sometimes known as seaweeds, are microscopic, multicellular, photosynthetic eukaryotic creatures. Based on their coloration and depending on their taxonomic classification, they can be classified into 3 groups: Rhodophyta, red; Phaeophyceae, brown; and Chlorophyta, green. This method, also known as the vertical bud method, involves planting seeds just below the soil surface, which allows a single bud to grow upward vertically. The distance between bud to bud is minimum 2 feet, which gives enough space for tiller. From one bud approximate 8 to 10 tillers are found. The trenches are irrigated and the soil of the trench is mixed at 2 to 3 times before planting the sets, in vertical position 40 to 50 centimeters apart. The fertilizer is applied, the trenches are irrigated after putting back soil into them, and the branch rayungans are cut off and pressed vertically into these trenches. There will come a time when only those that know how to plant will be eating. Chief Oran Lions. If you like African food systems content, please subscribe and share our channel with your friends and family. Or if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you make sure to never miss our weekly presentation podcast. Agriculture is tool to create health, wealth, shelter, protect environment, food, nutrition and basic skills development for our local communities.